City Council Committee of the Whole for the City of Highland Park, February 9th, 2026. Will the clerk call the roll?
Councilmember Center.
Present.
Councilmember Brockman.
Here.
Councilmember Ross. Councilmember Tapia.
Present.
Councilmember Littler.
Here.
Councilmember Bloomberg. Mayor Roder.
Here, we have a small but mighty quorum. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting held January 12th, 2026, and the minutes of the closed session held also January 12th, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. The minutes are approved. We have two items of scheduled business. The first one is regarding the pedestrian bridge design and reconstruction options. And I turn it over to City Manager Newkirk.
Great, thank you, Mayor, council members. Well, with us this evening, everybody knows our esteemed Director of Public Works, Ron Bannon, and then to his right is Dwayne O'Laughlin, representing the Siorba Group. We've been working with the Siorba Group on doing an analysis of the pedestrian bridge over Route 41. So we have a presentation this evening just to provide you an overview of the project, present some new information to you as it pertains to possible maintenance that could be conducted of the bridge, and then share information about total reconstruction and exactly what does that look like. So for the purpose of this committee of the whole discussion, we are looking for your feedback, but please know that no final decision is going to be made this evening. What we want to do is just make sure to present you with all this information. We are planning to come back at our March 30th committee of the whole meeting for two purposes. One is, at that time, we will have some preliminary cost estimates for the Public Service Center and Fire Station 34 project, which right now is tentatively scheduled for the fiscal year 27 budget. And then as part of that committee of the whole, we will also have a capital budget workshop. And so at that time, we will share information with you about what are some of the major projects that are set forth in our 10-year capital plan, what are those estimated costs, and then what does different financing strategies look like to accomplish any or all of that. So with that, I'll turn it over to the team to present this information, and then happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Gita. Good evening, everyone. As Gita said, my name is Dwayne O'Laughlin. I'm from Siorba Group. I'm the COO of Siorba Group. I've also been intimately familiar with this project, been working on it since the city requested us to take a look at it. And so we're here to talk about, have a discussion about what's the future of this bridge. So first of all, this just a real quick agenda. We're going to go over some of the history, along with the what could be the potential improvements, and then any discussion that you might have. So as far as the project history goes, as you see here, the project is located just south of Deerfield Road, or Central, depending on how you want to look at that, in Highland Park. And aerial view of it, you can see what it looks like. It's a very basic bridge in this form. And then the bridge itself, it's almost as old as I am. I'm a year older, but it's built in 1964, reinforced concrete bridge, and you can see here that it says here that it's historically eligible. Now, the city of Highland Park did not consider it to be eligible, but IDOT did say it was historically eligible. And what we had to do is we had to go through a process called there was a historical analysis done, and it's called the Section 106, what IDOT calls it. And we passed through all of that, and there were certain commitments that was made if a new bridge was constructed. And there's a memorandum of agreement that was signed by the city of Highland Park, and now we're waiting for the FHWA and IDOT to sign that agreement as well. There's nothing that's going to stop the agreement from being signed, but these were certain commitments that was made if we tore down this bridge and put up a new bridge. The other thing is about this is that when I say that there's no safe cycling or pedestrian crossing over US 41, that can be that depends on the user, of course. As you can see here on my previous slide, up here, Deerfield, there's no sidewalks there, so no one can cross there. If you want to look to the north, the closest north you can go would be Park Avenue West, which is a mile. And again, there are sidewalks there, but cyclists, depending on the maturity or the sophistication of the cyclist, may not may not be desirable. And then you have Clavey Road that's 1.5 miles to the south. There's sidewalks there. Clavey, as with the recent Clavey Road project, east of that location, there is the multi-use path now on the south side. But again, it's like I said, it's 1.5 miles from this location itself. The bridge itself, we have been doing, when I say we, Ciorba Group does do inspections of this bridge. We have to do these inspections every 2 years. And the bridge deck itself, that for the people, is in the worst condition of anything. The substructure, the piers and the abutments, what you see here, and you look at that picture in the bottom, and it looks terrible, that's actually cosmetic. Okay, that is actually cosmetic. When we say minor localized spall areas and exposed rebar on the piers, we do mean that. It's minor. It can take the beating. And then continuing on, like I said, this portion right here, this is what's in the worst condition of the bridge. It's really narrow. You can see these drains in the middle. These drains are a maintenance nightmare. They pop up, they fall. It could be an ankle twist hazard. The drainage system is actually failing in a lot of locations, so water will pond in these areas. And as you can see, it's really narrow and uninviting. And as someone who is a cyclist and taking my bike up over this thing, it is kind of scary. So, but as I said, we do inspect this bridge every 2 years, and the last time it was inspected was May of last year. So it was a recent inspection. And if you do nothing at all, you don't do any more maintenance, don't do anything to this bridge, we estimated it could last about 5 to 10 years. It all depends on what happens on certain things with the bridge portion that goes over US 41. If things start to spall and fall down, potential for things to fall on cars or whatever, we might have to do some sort of emergency netting or things like that, or maybe even just take the bridge down. But estimated 5 to 10 years. And as far as the infrastructure goes, a little bit bigger a look at that. You can see here all the existing trails or proposed trails that are here for pedestrians. And you can see that, again, you show the bridge going over US 41 to provide access for pedestrians. And then on the bicycle, again, there's really nothing there. If you look, you can see Clavey Road, it shows the dash there. That has actually been built now. The trail on the south side of Clavey was constructed here a couple years ago with the Clavey Road project. And so again, you can see there's really not a lot of connectivity on each side of 41 for bicyclists. So as far as the improvements, when we were asked to take a look at what would it take to replace this bridge, so you can see here we're showing what we came up with geometrically that's been approved by IDOT. You can see that the bridge itself involves a loop ramp and then a bridge to carry the structure over US 41, and then some MSE walls, some retaining walls, and then a touchdown there on Frederickson Place. There would be a proposed sidewalk, or proposed stairs there near Skokie Valley Road there on the west side. And then we would also have to work with the property owners there on the east side because of the trail coming down in front of their house. The reason why the geometry of this is so complex is the original bridge was built very steep. It's a 12+% steep slope going up. And the current standards are, in order to meet the American Disability Accessibility Guidelines, it cannot exceed 5%. So that loop ramp and that long ramp going down is what's getting us to be able to achieve that. The other thing that's complexity with this project is the current structure is currently vertical constrained over US 41. It's currently 16 foot 3 inches. IDOT's guidelines are 17 foot 3. So not only do we have to go up at 5% or a little less than that, we also have to go up a foot higher than the existing bridge. So again, that kind of complicates the geometry there. This is a real quick rendering that we did to kind of give you an impression of what it would look like on this end. Again, there would be retaining walls on the outside. The retaining walls could be aesthetically pleasing. As you can see, like a lot of retaining walls you can have. The inside, in order to save costs, we were going to grade it down. They can be landscaped in that area for the users to see. And then again, like I said, the bridge goes over US 41. So you can see here that the existing bridge, it's 6 feet. It's really narrow. But we're talking about this new bridge would be 14 feet wide. So being 14 feet wide provides adequate space for bicyclists, pedestrians to commingle. And then as I mentioned, there's the loop ramp. And as an engineer, I never like designing anything to the minimum or the maximum because there's construction tolerances. So that's why we said we designed this to 4.9% and not the 5% max that I had mentioned earlier. We were also asked to take a look at what it would take to rehabilitate the existing structure. And so what we would do is we took a look at it. We looked at a life cycle cost analysis of the bridge itself. What would it take to repair that bridge deck itself, the one that it's, like I said, it's really narrow, the drains are failing. And we concluded it's best to just take the whole bridge deck off. Construct a whole new bridge deck, and then the piers, all that cosmetic that I told you about on the piers and the abutments, we would repair those. And so that's what it says right here. We would put a new 10-foot wide bridge deck on there. It would no longer be 6. We could accommodate a 10-foot wide bridge deck, and we would put on IDOT standard bicycle railing. Now, to give you an idea what that would look like, this is a similar bridge. I don't know if anybody knows Roselle Road and Central Road in Schaumburg. There's a bridge that goes over Central Road. This is a bridge that we did. We had to work concurrently with Schaumburg and the Forest Preserve, but this is a view of that bridge as it's gone over Central Road, and now it's coming back down to touchdown. This could be what this would look like on that new deck for the user. Now, as far as the comparisons goes, the bridge rehabilitation versus the construction, approximately $2.4 million for the construction versus the $10.3 you see here for reconstruction. The funding for that would have to be 100% by the city for the rehab, because the reason for that is the grant funding, the ITEP grant funding you have. There's $2 million that the city was awarded for that. Because the bridge would still not be ADA compliant, the federal funding would be disallowed. So, and that federal funding does expire on November 30th of this year. The old bridge, the rehabilitation would not be bicycle friendly and it would also not meet the ADA guidelines. If we were to do that, it would be, again, about 25 years later, you'd have to go back and revisit the bridge, probably do some more inspections and do some repairs on the piers, the abutments, as well as the bridge deck. By then, the bridge deck's going to have something done to it. So about 25 years, you would have to take a look at that. Whereas on the other side, the bridge reconstruction, again, it's going to be ADA compliant. It's going to provide that bicycle connectivity and 75 years of service life. But again, at a cost of $10.3 million, of which $2 million of that will be offset by the ITEP funding grant. The other thing is, you note in there is I know the city was wanting to do some aesthetics with this because you wanted to kind of be a gateway, have Highland Park branding on it and things like that. So again, depending on how little or how much you want to do, the architect that I was working with said it's a pallet anywhere from $100,000 to maybe $500,000 was the estimate that we came up with. Now the work that the architect has, because of some of this, like not knowing the way the city was going to go, we have not been working on that portion. So I know that there would be, if we did go this way, there would be a lot of work we would have to do with the city as far as selecting pallets and with plants and aesthetics and things like that. And we can do that if necessary. So, that's the entire presentation. I leave it to any questions that you have.
Thank you. One question I had, if you could go back in terms of the 10.3 cost of construction of the new one, would that be in addition to the 2 million for engineering that we seem to have from ITEP, or would the ITEP be included in that 10.3?
The 10.3 is the total cost. So
Okay.
your $2 million that you have would offset that. So the city's cost would be 8.3.
And are you aware of state funds that would be available in addition to federal funds for the bridge?
We have been
construction?
ever since we've been I know your previous city engineer Manny Gomez and I, any grant that was available, we went after it.
Uh-huh.
We chased after 3 or 4 other grants.
Okay.
And some of them we came close. Other ones, I hate to put this, at Highland Park, our average income of Highland Park, it kind of these certain thresholds on some of these grants.
Right.
And so that's what kind of helps, what's hurt on some of those grant funds. But unfortunately, up to this point, we've not been able to secure additional funding.
Okay, so in essence, there's a potential for an $8.3 million deficit on the reconstruction
Yes.
versus the 2.4 for the rehabilitation. Okay, thanks. Annette, I know you had something you wanted to ask.
Thanks. So a couple quick questions. The 7 feet on either side, if you were doing the bridge, the new bridge, I believe that was?
What do you mean 7 feet? Oh, the
It's 14 feet
width.
wide in the
Yeah.
proposed
Yeah,
pedestrian.
The
Is
new-
that,
the new bridge for a reconstruction would be 14 feet wide.
Mm-hmm.
Under the rehab option, we can only do it 10 feet.
Is that for ADA compliance or for federal requirements?
Oh, the 14
No,
feet?
Mhm.
The 14 feet, because of the multi-use path being a bicycle and pedestrian,
Mm-hmm.
that is what garners the need for the additional width.
that's what I'm asking, because I was wondering if we could get it down to 12 feet, would it still be compliant and would it
Yes.
cost less?
Yes, the other reason for the additional width is because of this loop of the ramp. That ramp, because of that ramp, it's tight. We're very limited with the footprint that we have available with the two roads there. We had to make that curve really tight, and in order to be able to get away with having a curve that tight, we had to make things a little wider. So I asked that question as well. When I first saw this, I go, can we go down to 12 feet? You know, because again, like 10 feet is your normal multi-use path. So if that's 10 plus 2 and 2, which is a shoulder,
Right?
can we go 12? And again, like I said, the loop ramp itself.
Okay, so that was one question.
Mm-hmm.
New bridge up here. So, and I already got the answer for that. It wouldn't qualify for the federal dollar. Oh, that was what I was gonna ask. If we took off the bridge and just the bridge, but not the pilings, would that qualify as a new bridge so that we could still use that toward federal dollars?
Just take the,
If you took off the
Top.
top?
It's like a new bridge. Is there any way that would qualify for the 2.3 grant?
because of the ADA, not,
Because of the
no
compliance,
ADA
right.
compliance.
You don't have you also isn't high enough, right, for new
Right.
IDOT regulations.
Okay, so
Right.
because it can't comply with certain federal mandates,
Yes.
it doesn't qualify.
And IDOT.
The biggest thing is the ADA compliance.
Okay, great. And then I had one more. So on the reconstructed bridge, I know it's not ADA compliant, and I know it's not multi-use friendly from the standards that we'd optimally love to have. But considering I've ridden on that 6-foot wide thing, I mean, I'm in fear for my life, but I do it because I gotta get to the other side. But if it's 10 feet wide, that would be better. Could you take bikes there? It just wouldn't be like a recognized user-friendly bike, or do we have to ban bikes on it? You
It-
know,
You are correct about that. Now, I want to clarify, you said reconstruct, but you meant the rehabilitation. We'll just take the deck
Yes.
off, okay.
Yes.
I just want to make that clear.
Thank you.
So yes, so with this option, the steep ramps would still be there, the 12% ramps would be there. It would, because of that, it would not be the ADA compliant, so therefore, the ITEP grant funding would still not be used. And as a cyclist, I would rather go over something like that than
Me
what
too.
I've gone over on the existing bridge.
Right.
So yes, again, it's up to the user. Some
Personal
people, some of
choice.
your
Right.
normal cyclists probably wouldn't appreciate a 12% grade.
Right.
And the same way with people that are special needs, a 12% grade would not,
It's
you know,
tough.
it would be tough, but
Yeah.
yes, you would still have the access across. But again, like I said, for that, it's the cost of the $2 million grant. You wouldn't be able to use it.
What are the maintenance costs if we redid it and had the 75-year? Like if the rehab bridge, do you know what the annual maintenance costs would be?
The maintenance cost, like when I said the lifespan, we're thinking like it would be like 70. Your lifespan for this bridge would be 75 years. You would still have to go back and do maintenance every 10 to 20 years, depending on what happens. Again, things happen. You're going to have rust stains or things come loose and have to get tightened. Eventually, because of the salt intrusion, rebar could start being potentially popping, and then you have to fix those concretes. But I'm not going to lie to you. You're not going to walk away and not do anything for 75 years.
Right. And
You
so,
definitely have to do some maintenance.
given that the current bridge is 62 years old, so how come you're saying 25 years if we fix it? I understand it's not great, but it's not collapsing, so why would it not have also close to 80 years of service life or 75 years of service?
Well, because of the piers themselves. The piers themselves are already 64 years old.
Okay,
62 years old, and they are, and because of that, they are showing those cosmetic that I was telling you about. Then we'll repair those, but eventually they will exceed their life expectancy of
Okay.
75. If you could potentially get 100 years out of them with really good maintenance, but I didn't want to over forecast the
Yeah.
25 years and tell you 50.
yeah.
So
It's like a knee replacement.
It's like a knee replacement. Okay.
Sometimes you need it, sometimes you don't.
How
Can
old
you
are
talk
you?
about the surface?
which one?
The surface that you put down for walking and the bike.
Yes.
What is that?
That's concrete. It would be concrete.
I think it just looks that way because the sun's shining.
Yeah, it's the net.
Yeah, you're seeing a shadow across the
pattern.
railing.
Yeah.
Okay, and what kind of concrete? Would it be like a smooth concrete or rough concrete?
It would be a textured concrete because you don't want it to be a troweled smooth concrete like a basement floor because it would be slick,
Okay.
It's like sidewalks. We brush
like a
sidewalks,
sidewalk, a
but-
broom finish.
John, do you have a question?
Yeah, it's a really important bridge, right, relative to the connectivity of the city, particularly with potentially increased population over there.
Yeah.
And as a gateway to this, to downtown, I think this signage is its own thing, but like an opportunity to sort of refresh the way the town looks as people are driving into it. When you look at the dollars, it's obviously a significant investment today, but when you look at the incremental dollars of needing to spend every 25 years, or what you'll need to spend in 25 years to replace it anyways, you're actually gonna end up spending more. So it's a tough pill to swallow today, but you're theoretically more prudently utilizing those resources now versus costing yourself more later.
So the question is, and this is to Christie in the back row, do we have an estimate of what this kind of?
That'll
that
come on the
would be-
30th. Yeah, that'll be on the 30th.
Because that
Net
is,
eight.
to your point,
So
if
the
it's
net eight.
amortized over 15 or 30 years and what that cost is annually,
Yeah, so that conversation and this project and the totality of the complete capital plan will come on the 30th.
Perfect.
Right,
Yeah.
but I think
Those are
that's
just
an
my-
important question, because to your point,
Yeah.
if we're looking out 75 years, but it's only 50 cents a household for the next, whatever it is, then it's like, okay, then we do it. I don't know what the math is. It's not 50 cents a house. Okay, Marissa, do you have any questions?
No, I think I'm torn because I also think the rehabilitation looks nice, especially if you could use it as a bike path, like unofficially too. So I think, and that's given where we're at in terms of the budget, that's a lot less. I don't know what the answer is right now, but that's kind of where I'm leaning. But based on looking at the numbers, next month too, because that would give us 25
That's a
years.
critical part of the conversation.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
no question.
yes. So,
Yeah.
but.
Yeah, since we're a small group, we'll just say my point of view here is I'm in favor of the new build of the new bridge. I think the financing thing makes sense. And also, it's just who we are. I mean, we're a walking, biking community. That's part of our plan. And we're doing a lot of things. And one of the most important connectivities is from east to west. And if we didn't do anything, you
Oh, we
know,
gotta do something.
and then if we rehab, still would be rehabbing something that is kind of, you know, iffy. I mean, look at all those not, you know. Yeah. And, you know, we gotta be modern, and we're upgrading so much of our city. We have to kind of keep the brand of the city consistent across the board. And I agree with John that it is a visible marker, you know, for entrance to our city. And given other conversations we're having about branding the city in certain ways, this could be a really good place to you know, elevate that messaging. So I think, yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow, but this other one is gonna cost us a lot, and we're gonna get little for
Over
it.
and over again.
And get little for it in terms of the elevation, right? And I think we wanna not only fix and be safe, but we also wanna elevate our image or maintain a certain image. And I don't see how the one on the left maintains our image.
It'll be important to look at the full capital improvement plan over the next 10 years and where this fits in terms of the priorities of what this council wants to move forward on and what the costs are.
But I would just underline that I think,
You like the idea of the
well, I think it
redo.
fits, we'll have that debate, but I think it does fit one of our main priorities of the city.
Mhm. Thank you. Any other?
A
Yeah,
question.
sure.
I'm sorry to bring this up, but you know, Lake County has been talking about the east-west connectivity and the
Right.
bridges and going over the highway, and it's really difficult. And that's one of the reasons that project was stalled for 7 years, because they couldn't decide how to get over there, and this goes over the highway.
Right.
Is there any thought to perhaps talking to Lake County about maybe?
Oh, I think we should talk to everybody. The
Yes.
state, the
But-
county, and the federal. And it's,
It's-
so the ITEP funds come through the organization called CMAP. And I'm on the board of CMAP representing Lake County. So we can certainly, you know, find out what other funding they'd be willing to go to bat for us.
Yeah, because I think they're, you know, they just had their workshop about the bridge.
Right.
Over.
Lake Cook.
Over Lake Cook or Clavey or all the other options
Right.
that they proposed.
Right.
And there was a lot of, what are we gonna do here, if, or what are we gonna do?
Yeah,
So, this might be a really good time to talk.
no
to
stone
them.
will go unturned. Anybody else? No? Okay, well, really appreciate the presentation. This has really been enlightening.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
So you're saying two.
Okay, Joel, thank you for coming to talk to us about the building code update.
Yes, thank you.
I'll stick it out.
Yeah, thank you.
Very cool.
Okay.
What?
I don't think it's remembered.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes,
fine.
okay.
You bet.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This evening, the second presentation will be about our building code update, a major project of the city that we undertook last year and is finishing up in this fiscal year, 26. And I'd like to just go through an overview of that and some of the key changes that we're making. So just to start off, I want the council to understand the collection of codes just at a very high level that are involved in development and construction. We have codes that are mandated to us from the state. Those include the Energy Conservation Code, the Accessibility Code, and the Plumbing Code. And then we have what we would refer to as the ICC, or the International Code Council's code families. Those are adopted by reference by localities throughout the United States and internationally. We do that now. We have what's referred to as the 2018 code family with local amendments. This update proposes to upgrade our building code to the 2024 version, which is the latest available version of the International Code Council's model codes. You'll see there that we have building, existing building, and residential codes. We have fire, fuel, gas, mechanical codes. All of these are part of that International Code Council code family. We have property maintenance, swimming pool, and spa codes as well from the International Code Council. We also recommend adopting the National Electric Code. We currently have the 2017 version. This recommends 2023, essentially bringing us up to date with the latest materials used and methods used for construction. So let's talk a little bit about how these codes come about. The state has its own code development process. The International Code Council has a process as well, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. The building code update project that the city is undertaking consists of two main projects. One, updating from the International Code Council's 2018 code cycle to its latest, the 2024 cycle, as I had mentioned. It's often referred to as a code family because there's a number of codes that are involved in that, as I mentioned just a moment ago. And then the second part of the project is assessing the Illinois Stretch Energy Code. The 2023 version is now available, or has been available since January 1st, 2025. We had a conversation last year about that. The council asked some very important policy questions. And we have, as a city, obtained a grant to assess the Illinois Energy Stretch Code to advise the council as to whether or not it makes sense to adopt and what trajectory it takes us on in terms of our goal of ultimately achieving net zero. I want to thank Erin Jason and her team and Sustainability Division for obtaining this grant, and it's really instrumental to the work we'll be doing this year to assess that for you and come back with interesting and important information to help you make that decision. That does not have to happen before or concurrently with number one. So number two is a separate project. Number one is all self-contained. You do not need to do number two. I just want to make that clear. The city last updated its building code in February of 2020 to the 2018 model codes with amendments. Okay, so talking about the ICC model code development process. So the International Code Council, otherwise known as ICC, uses a three-stage process. Code starts out with it's a 3-year process all in, and they start out in a rolling basis, so they just don't stop. They issue a code and then they begin developing the next set of codes. It takes about 3 years. So they start with code development committees, and they have stakeholders from the building industries, government, academia, design professionals, insurance, builders, contractors, manufacturers, distributors, and other development professionals all around the table with these code committees. They examine and go through what's called a code change submission and review process. So, okay, what do you want to change? Every 3 years, things change in construction, the materials used, the methods to achieve the goals of building safety for everyone. And so they review changes. And then they also look at things like, that didn't work so well. How about changing it? As we all do with all of our codes. At all levels. So it's a concerted effort that then goes into stage 2, where they have committee action hearings, where they talk about it and they debate and they say, what about this, what about that, stakeholder group this, stakeholder group that. If you do this, that's not going to work. If you do that, it costs too much. All those types of conversations happen. They then go to public comment and review. They see what the public has to say. We find very interesting things come up from that as well. And so those are taken into account and consideration, as the council well knows from their work. And then they have public hearings. So they talk about it through public hearings process. Stage 3 then goes to a consensus vote by eligible voters. Some council members may not recall, but I'll just refresh the council's general collective memory from my presentation last year. In 2019, we did participate in the Code Council vote with regard to encouraging the International Code Council to develop a base set of model codes that will be on a glide path to net zero by 2050. So just to give you a local example of how we had participated at one point in time. And then, a new edition is published every 3 years. And so this 3-stage process ends in that, and then those become available in print, electronic form, and training sessions start to occur from there. There's also code commentary that follows that, where where the Code Council further explains things, where there are questions that they find through training of folks, bringing them up to speed. Okay, so to step back and say, okay, so what are we doing? Okay. The city's building code adopts by reference with various amendments certain state and international model codes, as I said at the outset. So specifically, what we're looking to do, what we have right now, is the 2024 Illinois Energy Conservation Code that's promulgated by the state of Illinois. And that became effective this year. Actually, at the end of last year, it was available, I believe, at the end of November. We do that by reference, so there's nothing that this council has to do. In 2020, we made sure that all of our codes did by reference the state codes that are required, so that the council doesn't need to worry about adopting amendments quickly and things like that. We also have by reference 2018 Accessibility Code, also an Illinois state code, so that's the latest edition of that. And lastly, the 2014 State Plumbing Code with local amendments, sparingly there with the local amendments. We also look at, in terms of by reference, where we would like to go is to the 2023 National Electric Code. Right now we're on 2017. So we adopt by reference that code, and so we need to change that to 2023 is our recommendation. We also adopt by reference the model codes from the International Code Council. Our reference is to the 2018 versions. We'd like to change that to 2024. Again, here's the code family how it's referred to as a code family, because it consists of a number of codes, as you see there. Building code, existing building code, fire code, fuel gas code, mechanical code, property maintenance code, residential code, and swimming pool and spa code. So it pretty much covers the full gamut. Now, I just want to make a note here. All of those are building codes but one. The property maintenance code isn't really a building code. And in our code, it's chapter 174, not chapter 170. It's just a nuance to let you know that. But nonetheless, the ICC, or the International Code Council, produces a code for property maintenance, and we do use it, and we have used it for many, many years. Okay, so what did this project accomplish? Well, it accomplished a number of code improvements. It aligns more closely with model building codes, which makes them more accessible to users. This is an initiative, an ongoing initiative that Council had set forth a while ago during our last code update, and we further do that alignment through this code, where we look at the 2024 codes and say, hey, why are we doing this differently? Why not align? Why is that a better way to approach it? Well, because there's a common set of training and experience that design professionals have and staff have relative, or employees have, relative to codes. This, if you have particular code amendments in your locality, sometimes those are the most difficult to make sure that design professionals know and that staff know as well. So that alignment helps. Also, it helps in the sense that Code Council does a very good job at developing code. And so sometimes they got it better than we had it or would have it. And therefore, hey, let's adopt the model code. So often what happens is there are local code amendments that ultimately eventually get adopted by the ICC in future code cycles. There are things that just didn't make it in the committee, right? But nonetheless, governmental regulators really do value and want to have. And so those are some amendments that you adopt locally, right? We eliminated redundancies, unnecessary provisions, and improved clarity. The code improvements address local environmental conditions, building and life safety, and streamline operations through the elimination of certain deposits. Now, although these deposits are related to permits, they actually exist in different parts of our code, Chapter 93 in this case, with regard to driveway and sprinkler systems. Working with Public Works Director Bannon, to review the deposits that we collect. We determined that those two deposits don't add value to the process or the outcomes, and instead just create work. And so there's no value to the customer, and the city has not utilized them, nor do they really represent a significant enough value at $250 to incentivize anything. So you could say, well, what would you do, and why do we collect, and what would you do if they don't do the driveway or sprinkler system properly? Well, these things exist in our right-of-way, and so we own the right-of-way. We know where the person lives. It's the house right there. And so we feel confident that without a deposit, we could use our administrative hearing system to make sure that things are done properly with regard to their driveways and sprinkler systems. And thus we eliminate an administrative burden that the collection and refund of deposits creates, and also just the absolute zero value it's seen by customers, saying, so it's like the 8th grade punish assignment you're saying? I didn't do anything. What do I need to give you this money so you can give it back? Well, yeah. Okay, let's not do that. Now, we do keep, and we intend to keep street openings and water connections. Now, those happen in the right-of-way, out in the street. So someone digs up the street, and let's say they don't do what they're supposed to do. Public Works would need to jump in potentially and fix that hole. Now, we could still fine folks and all that, but we want to be able to act quickly, and we want to have some money to do it with. And so those two we're going to keep. But that has to do with our water systems and our streets, so that we don't have holes in our streets and water system is done properly. Okay. So let's get to the key local amendments. So with regard to private septic systems, our proposed amendments prohibit any expansion or new private sewage systems regardless of the size of lot size, consistent with past practice. Public Works and Community Development recommend against septic systems. They are not something that you want to have in your city. Those that exist can remain and be maintained, but we don't want any expansion or new ones. Amendments regarding prohibition of prohibited locations for toilet facilities. So this gets down a little bit in the weeds, but it just gives you an example of how we try to fill gaps where we see them. And so we have the state plumbing code, but it covers pretty much everything, except there's one provision in the International Building Code, the Model Code, that's not addressed in the state plumbing code, and so we're going to maintain that provision so that we essentially close a loophole in the state law. Eventually, that would be rectified through the state, enabling, through their update process, and but it hasn't yet, and so we recommend that be included. Regarding backflow preventers on boiler systems, okay, so backflow preventers are very important. We operate a water system. They're important whether or not you operate a water system, but we have particularly acute interest in this, as we are a water purveyor. And this requires backflow preventers on all boiler systems used for heating a structure. It's important to protecting the water supply. You don't want the water to become contaminated, and thus the backflow prevention prevents that. There are several miscellaneous provisions, as I refer to them here. They have to do with climatic and geographic design criteria. This affects all municipalities, and you have to kind of pick your path, right, depending on where you're located and what these things need to be for your community. So you have things like snow loads, wind speed, frost line, design day, meaning for your heating systems. What is the design day? What is the situation outside that you're designing for? Termite infestation, ice barriers, and flood hazards. As we know, we have lots of flood zones in our community. So we use so what we did is we updated to make sure that it reflects our community, and we based it on the American Society of Civil Engineers Hazards Report, which is per the ICC code, model code, and we conferred with the International Code Council on this matter, so to make sure that we got it right. So those are being set. Existing chimney height, we removed this because the model code addresses this without specifying who pays for what, which is a private matter. So we had a local amendment that is essentially taken care of by our existing model codes that we'd be adopting, and there's no need to interject oneself in that. Gates on construction sites. Now you're gonna say, boy, geez, really? Yeah, we need to make sure we're adding to the code that they be locked. So in 2020, we included that, yeah, you need to have those construction fences. We got over the fact of, well, do I need one or not? We just said all construction sites need them unless otherwise said, so that the default was correct. And so here we're saying, yeah, you need to lock them when you're not on the site. You know, it seems possible. We want to be able to hang our hat on something if we need to take someone in for citation. The goal there is to keep kids and people out of construction sites. They are very attractive. People like to look around. Hey, let me look at these houses. You shouldn't be in there. You're trespassing technically. We don't want you to get hurt. We don't want kids messing around in there. Unfortunately, in other parts of the country, we haven't had this here, but to my knowledge, but you know, kids party and sometimes are very destructive in homes, new homes and buildings, and they use them as a venue, which you absolutely do not want. They are not occupiable at that time and should only be professionals in the construction trades and others around and on those sites. Okay, vacant lot standards. So we've had a number, I shouldn't say this, we have from time to time fires in our community. And unfortunately, there's a loss of property and God forbid life, but loss of property, sometimes significant, that requires the demolition of a home. And so we want to provide enough time for folks to make arrangements for what they're going to do after. And this might seem like, well, what do you mean? Don't they just want to rebuild? It's more complicated than that, and often involves a lot of planning and wrangling with your insurance company before you could just go ahead and build a new house. Often folks don't have the means to just pop and do that. There's a lot of work to do, both in terms of who you're going to hire, to where the money's coming from, bank loans, etc. So what this does is it says, hey, it allows sufficient time to comply with the vacant lot standards, or if redevelopment is proposed for the property owner to apply within 180 days, that should be in brackets, for a building permit and obtain one within 270. So why the 180 and the 270? 180 days, believe me, after a big fire and a loss like that, those days go by fast. I've talked with folks, and you know, we try to have as much empathy as we can while making sure the site's safe and that the community knows, hey, something's going to happen here, right? So we go from, you need to knock down this home, to what are you going to do with this after you knock it down? So there are times where people say, listen, I'm going to raise the home, but I want to keep the foundation because I want to rebuild on that foundation. You could do that by zoning, but the question is when? You know, so this ties to, okay, we're with you, we understand, we don't want to make you incur more costs than you have to by removing the foundation and all that. You need to get us something in 180 days, okay? What are you going to do with this? And then we give ourselves time to review those plans, because when somebody applies for a building permit, well, some are better than others, and so we don't want to have a situation where we have to approve something in any amount of time that would be unwise. So this gives plenty of time for review and revisions from the customer, okay, to get there, because we know that sometimes, depending on the team that they use, it could be more or less in terms of the number of revisions. Having said that, we set this end date so that it's like, look, you supplied us a building permit, but these plans are not approvable. Well, you don't get to just leave the lot like that. After 270, we're like, that's it. It's a violation. You got to find a design professional to get this to meet the code. This isn't some secret game. The code is there, published. You can meet the code. You just haven't yet. So it gives belt and suspenders. Okay, retaining walls. Another area where our improvements focused on clarifications. Okay, specifically how to measure the height of a retaining wall. Okay, so we're proposing from finished grade to top of wall. That is what people can see. The way the current code is it talks about the footing, and the footing is below the ground, and nobody knows how far, and all this. You can't measure, well, that's not 4 feet, that's 3 feet. Yeah, above the ground, but what about below? So we just said, you know what, we're doing everything from above the ground, because then it's universally able to be seen and not this game of where the footing is and how deep is it. So that clarified one thing, because this does get touchy with neighbors at times. And what we're trying to do here is small retaining walls aren't generally a problem. So you have little landscaping walls and things like that, not the things we're really worried about, right? But when they get higher than 3 feet, you need a design professional, and in certain circumstances where they're supporting a surcharge or impounding. So if there's some weight behind them, that this is actually holding back the earth as opposed to decorative with very light charge, you have the ability, we have the ability to require a professional to design that so that we don't have unfortunate collapses or other things that happen. People sometimes put their vehicles on driveways that are being retained by retaining walls. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's a different kind of a wall than, I got a bunch of azaleas here,
Yeah.
and it's not really a big deal. So, we clarified that. Okay, elevator inspections. We're proposing aligning with state regulations that require 1 instead of 2, as our local code does, elevator inspections per year. This is in recognition of just the acute shortage of qualified elevator inspections to perform. Our third-party consultant, to the best of their ability, has struggled, as has previous third-party consultants. You may have read, it's in the popular news that one of the most lucrative and in-demand professions is elevator inspectors. There's a real shortage. And the way the law is written, state level, in the administrative code, there are only certain people that can do that. So we do not have those staff members. It is not cost effective for us to develop a person internally to do that work. They are specialists, and they are required by state law to be those qualified experts to do that. And so we're recommending that this align with state code. Other municipalities do the same. I don't view this as a problem. I just view the problem as being the acute shortage of qualified elevator inspectors. And hopefully that will change, although given the pending retirements of many, it's going to get more interesting rather than less. We'll see what the younger generation, whether they take a shine to this field or not. Hopefully they do, or at least in sufficient numbers. Elevator car changes. We're recommending elevator cars to accommodate ambulance stretchers. So in all new buildings that provide elevators, okay, so that's the qualifier, in all new buildings that provide elevators, at least one elevator that accommodates an ambulance stretcher must be provided, okay? So it does expand the scope of the requirement to include buildings 4 stories or less above and below grade plane. So we have this need to accommodate stretchers, and it avoids fire department staff climbing stairs, lifting, and not being able to get in and out as quickly as they otherwise would be able to. Definitions. We have made some changes to definitions to align with the model codes with regard to substantial improvement and substantial damage. These are important definitions as they drive what's required in terms of how you're addressing things when you're doing a substantial improvement or when you're addressing substantial damage. And what that means is you'll have to bring more things up to code, okay, current code. This goes to fire sprinklers, etc., which we'll talk about in a moment. We also changed definition of recreational fire that we have. We add the fire distance requirements and allowance. In terms of the distance, you see here we prohibit open flames to be located within 10 feet from a structure unless otherwise allowed by the manufacturer's specifications. So this is a general rule. Certain equipment, if the manufacturer has incorporated certain safety measures, can be used differently. If they have not, then the 10 feet is the rule. Okay, sprinkler systems. So, as I mentioned before, we are using the model codes definition base for substantial damage and substantial improvement. And we use those are triggers for requiring automatic sprinkler systems throughout existing buildings. When an improvement is 50% or more of the market value of the structure, okay? It's real important. So what we used to call a substantial renovation is now a substantial improvement. Is this a big change from what we currently have? No. It is basically some different words, but essentially what we're doing. When you have a substantial improvement, you need to include sprinklers. We specify there are 3 exceptions to sprinklers required to be installed throughout in new buildings and additions. One is relating to a tension membrane system, or the dome, as you will, our dome. Small additions and small detached accessory structures. Okay. Sprinkler systems are important in terms of fire and life safety and property damage reduction. And so these are important provisions. So really what we're doing is aligning with our model code from the ICC on the definitions and the 50% more market value of the structure. Okay. There are several amendments that help the fire department access buildings quickly, avoid delays, and associated damage during an incident. So through this amendment package, we require key boxes, master key systems, fire alarm zone maps, and initiating device identification. So what is all this? Fire department needs to get into the building quickly without bashing in the front door or side door or whatever door. So we require key boxes at the main entrance of the ground level tenant space of multifamily buildings. Master key systems. We require master key for each floor of a multi-tenant building. Fire alarm zone maps. Requires fire alarm zone map and building floor plan for fire alarm system installation. And initiating device identification. Requires fire alarm device identification for all new buildings. So together, this reduces the time it takes to address an incident. It's very important. Seconds matter. So, of course, existing fire alarm systems can be repaired and parts can be replaced without having to comply with the new building requirements. Okay, private fire hydrants. So, when we have private fire hydrants on properties, we're requiring them through this amendment to be visually distinguishable and identified in the same manner. Okay, so it's to paint them a certain color and such. There are various ways to deal with fire hydrants and understanding this, numbering systems and such and so forth. This amendment talks about the actual color of the hydrant. Okay. Energy storage systems, specifically in utility closets, basements, and storage spaces. Now, we're all very excited about going green and moving to electric and all sorts of things, cars, and, everything that we do, stoves even, things like that, to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. But they do pose a risk. These energy systems can store quite a bit of energy, your vehicles, and then also what are called these, whole house battery systems, if you will, for lack of better terms. Where they're located matters. Outside the home or away from the structure is one thing, but when they're in these locations, this amendment requires additional life safety measures be employed. It ensures them that if they're installed in a building, that these additional measures to protect the structure and other surrounding structures and properties include early detection systems, increased fire rating protections of walls, sprinklers, etc. So it's not that folks can't do them in their home or a business can do it. It's that when they do, we need additional provisions. Okay, and just one other thing on that, and I know Chief is here, and he has emphatically said how there is concern about ESS systems and runaway chemical reactions that they then incur. So these types of systems, it's different type of fire than is typical. Okay, they essentially it's a chemical reaction that can self-sustain, which is pretty scary. It can produce its own oxygen, if you know what I'm saying. So the fire can just keep going. So what happens is you have to burn out the fuel. It's just, it's not, you can't put it out before it's done with its chemical reaction. Now, the way that you could do it is you cool it. It reduces the chemical reaction. The faster you can do that, the better. But these are very hard to put out. And thus we want additional safety measures so that the fire department can get there to address them before they get out of control. Okay, local amendments in 1 and 2 family dwelling and townhouses. This is called the IRC. IRC is International Residential Code. Okay. So what we're looking for here is a set of provisions that amend the code. One, heat detectors. Requires affordable early fire detection in garage and mechanical rooms. These are not expensive anymore, and so we think this is a reasonable amendment and should be included. Alarm systems requires a blue lens strobe fire indicator for all townhouses. This will help firefighters easily visually identify the unit with the fire incident and reduce response time. So this is just for townhomes. So we don't need the blue light for a single-family detached home. We have an address. We know where it is. Fire department, in their operations, if they're going to a townhouse development, wants to be able to roll down the street and see which unit within the building assemblies that have those townhouses are. Okay, it just, again, reduces response time. Energy storage systems, well, we just talked about that. Those in closets, basements, and other storage spaces. In the previous slide, we talked about that. Household alarm systems. Okay, this amendment aligns with the model code by no longer requiring household fire alarm systems. Okay, Chief and staff have worked long and hard. Our fire prevention staff has looked at this, and Chief. Automatic fire sprinkler system is sufficient, and fire alarm system can be optional. And so all of our single-family homes are required to have, including townhouses, sprinklers. And so this is an amendment that removes that as a requirement. Doesn't stop someone from doing it, but nonetheless removes that. Okay, so talking about additional requirements. Fire sprinkler systems. So we talk about we already require that sprinklers are included in new homes. Okay. Now we're talking about what if you do a significant improvement? Well, this amendment sets the threshold at 75% of the market value. You'd have to go through the house and do the whole house, not just the addition, not just the, okay. So this is important. We're largely a built-out community. We do have lots of new homes, but when you look at the portfolio of homes we have, it's a small portion. And so the fire department and life safety initiatives of local governments have a real conundrum. How do we get the existing up to the safety of today? It's lagging, right? And so this is how we propose to do it. It's based on a significant improvement to the property. Now, unlike commercial, this is 75% of the structure's value. So if you're going to gut renovate your home, 75% of its value is your project. You're going to have to add sprinklers in. And so that will be an incremental cost. It can be like $12,000 for a 3,000 square foot home. But what it does is this is an opportunity with that much investment in a renovation to just pass that up is a real missed opportunity. And how will we ever get our community up to the standard that we now require for new homes? If we're going to wait for everything to be rebuilt, that's a really long time. However, with a significant improvement like this, we can get those major improvements to do this. And we think it is worth doing. The damage to the property and the saving of lives that adding sprinklers can lead to is very important. And so that's our recommendation. This amendment also requires one sprinkler head in attached garages, as well as a bell alert system to be installed on the supply duct for each HVAC system installed in the residence. Again, we're trying to give people time. These things give people time to get out, the fire department to get there, and the fire to be as minimal as possible. In terms of deleted amendments, we're aligning with the 2024 model code with regard to concrete foundation walls, stud size, height, spacing, and top plates. City of Highland Park had different requirements than the model codes. An interdepartmental team of staff reviewed this. We don't think this is something that we need to do. The code is sufficient, and that's why we would recommend removing those. Shed anchorage. This requires sheds to be anchored to the ground to prevent displacement during severe weather conditions. We keep talking about all these severe storms and climate change and other things. Part of being resilient is to minimize damage that's caused. These types of things help do that. You don't want your shed flying off, the foundation going elsewhere, hitting into things. It just causes more damage. And so we recommend it. Now, sheds do not need foundations. You can build a foundation, in which case you don't need the anchoring, and it will be anchored to the foundation. But where you don't, there are these what are called screw-in anchors that you can screw into the ground. You may have seen them for tents, and you can anchor your shed down so that it won't go away. Now, you say, well, when could this happen? Well, when you have really severe windstorms and, God forbid, tornadoes and other things like that. The damage caused from things flying can be tremendous, including loss of life. And so trying to keep that in safe position there. Okay, wiring methods. Now, we're talking about the National Electric Code here. So we're recommending some amendments to wiring methods. Inspector Mike Bill has been a working electrician for 50 years. That's not an exaggeration. And he reviewed these codes and reviewed our standards and has enforced them for the years he's been here. And we recommend maintaining higher standards in City High Park, similar to other North Shore communities related to metal conduit raceways. It makes future repairs and upgrades more efficient and cost effective. And so we think that is in the best interest of the community to do that. And so that we recommend keeping. But it is an amendment from the model code. Emergency disconnects. This requires an emergency power disconnect to be installed on the exterior of all commercial and multifamily buildings. Okay, so when the fire department rolls up to a situation, it enables the fire department to quickly turn off the power to the entire building from the outside to avoid, the potential risk that they face when buildings are having an incident and the power is on, and how to get that off and where are we going to get that to turn off. So this just, again, reduces response time. Okay, ISPSC, what is that? Well, it's the International Pool and Spa Code, okay? So regarding barriers for pools. So this amendment that we're proposing requires all in-ground pools to have a 4-foot-high fence barrier around them, regardless of whether they have a lockable safety cover installed that would otherwise make them exempt from fence requirements. This eliminates reliance on pool owners to use their pool covers when not in use. Okay, let me explain what's going on here. From an enforcement standpoint, the city is in a tough spot. There are folks that are very concerned about pools and pool safety, abutting pools. They have little children, other things like that. Become acutely aware of pools as a danger. And I'll tell you that pools are a danger. It's one of the most dangerous things in a residential household, a pool, particularly with little children. And so teaching adults and children how to swim in as soon as possible is really recommended. However, there are other things that you could do that can help, and this is one of them. So over the years, the code has changed. This was in the model-based code a while ago, but then came the lockable safety covers. Now these automatic lockable safety covers, you hit the button and it covers the pool, and great, no one could fall in, it's wonderful. But do people actually do it? Okay, so there's the knowing and doing gap, right? So great, you got this lockable pool cover, it's wonderful, but it's open. So we get the calls. Oh my God, there's no one at the pool and it's open. So vice versa, people don't want to put up fences around their pools. So then you get the call, I don't want to do that. So whichever way we go on this, there's a constituency that doesn't like it, and we do spend time dealing with that, okay? And so, we seek feedback from council on that. If we want to maintain that the lockable safety cover is sufficient, that's fine. We'll be involved in enforcement related to use of that, which is very hard to do. It's very easy to see that there's a fence up that meets the code. It's much harder to know how people are operating their pool cover. Regarding in-ground pool ladders and steps with no barriers, so these are essentially, this is a provision related to above-ground pools, okay? And so what we're saying here is that if it's unattended, please, all ladders and steps shall be removed and secured or locked to prevent access. There are little things you could put on your staircase that prevent people from climbing it. You could take staircases away from the pool. Again, really trying to save those kiddos who are interested in everything from getting in the pool without someone attending it. All right, and then International Property Maintenance Code, IPMC. So this is about avoiding nuisances, so there's a few amendments that we're looking at here. Temporary roof coverings, okay. We have lots of roof permits. People are doing their roofs all the time. Sometimes people get some damage from storms. Other times they find they have a leak in their roof and they need to hey, I got to get a tarp on this right away. I can't get a guy just yet. Fine, we get all that. Important to be able to use a tarp. But when it goes on for too long, it becomes a nuisance and it just is unsightly. And so what we're setting here is that you can use a tarp, but not for more than 90 days during roof work. We think this is reasonable. We want some end boundary. Now you're going to say, Joel, well, how do you know when they use the tarp? When we get the complaint, that'll be day one. That's how we know, okay? So 90 days from that complaint. We're not running around looking for tarp. Now, if we see a tarp and drive by and it's months and months, sure. But this is more of a complaint-based system whereby people say, I got a leak, I'm putting up a tarp, great. But then they don't get a permit. And you're like, you know what, guys, it's been up for over 90 days. You need to get a permit or get this, fixed. So regarding feeding wildlife, we prohibit feeding wildlife, not including birds, folks. And yes, you could still have your chicken coops. The law is that's not a wildlife. They're different. Okay. You could say, well, what's this about? Folks are concerned about rodents and raccoons and skunks that really get attracted to places. Once you start feeding squirrels, even squirrels could become very aggressive, climbing in windows, climbing on windows. Once you start feeding them, they're not pets. You do not want them in your home. And so it does become a problem for neighbors, even if you do like it. Some people really do. Some pump discharging, we're essentially referring to other city code so as not to cause a nuisance to others. Okay, next steps. We have an adoption scheduled for council's February 23rd meeting with an effective date of March 1st. The transition to the updated code package is already underway. We've notices to design professionals, State Office of Capital Development, and the city clerk have occurred. General contractor license has been updated to reflect the new code. And staff has completed training in the International Code Council 2024 Code family. As an aside, but should be a different type of bullet there, but as an aside, staff recommends the next building code update be to the 2030 ICC model code family in winter of 2032. This allows time for staff and customer training and ICC guidance publication. And so that's what's happened. And that's what we've done this time as well. And that's, yes. I was just about to introduce several people, not introduce, but thank several people. Archana Mohan Chandra is the building division manager. She headed up the building code update process, and she coordinated amongst interdepartmental staff from Public Works, Fire, as well as our own in the building division, inspections unit, the plan review unit, and front counter unit. So we really do appreciate that effort, and it was a tremendous effort. Chief Shaggy and his team also really appreciate the guidance that you've provided and the hard work that we all did with the fire prevention unit in community development. Works very closely with the fire department. And so Chief Shaggy, our fire official, was integrally involved in the fire code update parts of this code update. And then Public Works as well. And thank you, Ron, for your staff participating in this as well. And that's presented to you, this code amendment with that contribution from all those staff, and much appreciated.
That was amazing. I think we need to put that out on the internet for people to best understand why this is so important. And so I'm going to echo your thanks first to you.
Well, thank you.
And to Aaron, and to Archana, and to Ron, and to Joe. I mean, this is insanely detailed and so important in terms of life safety, in terms of a healthy environment, in terms of stormwater management, I mean, in terms of getting people to invest in our community more efficiently. Because we used to have like, what, 700 other code amendments, it was like the Highland Park Code is another 700 things you need to comply with, and people are
Well,
like,
Yes.
how do I even build in this community?
And I
So,
will say to you that there are still a number of code amendments that aren't changing, that we're carrying over. There's
Right.
just no change. So, but we have reduced that, and we've added where we've mentioned.
right. But I think this just speaks to, you know, our values, our mission of what we're trying to achieve here, both in terms of a healthier environment, in terms of giving people more safety. To your point about the storage units, I think that's, you know, new technology that people want to embrace, and how do you make sure that their homes don't blow up in the process while they're trying to keep the world greener. So that was such a great presentation. I just can't say enough about it.
It represents a lot of work from staff, and, you know, our fire prevention unit was involved in the development of these codes as
Well,
well. and
great
they
work.
worked very
Great
closely
work.
with Chief on that.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I know Annette had her hand up with a tiny, nope, maybe not. That was the last one. And also then Andres and then John, so, yeah, and Marissa. Okay.
So the question, I actually had a question about whether certain things were grandfathered in, and I didn't know if that was more for you, Steve. But like you were talking about, if there's a 75% renovation of a home or whatever. So, you know, obviously there's new code requirements. So if you do more than 75% of a home or anything, it's not just a home. I'm just wondering if there's a grandfather provision, or if, when
No,
does
well,
it change?
I'll answer
What
that.
triggers it?
So what triggers it is the 75%. Sprinklers would be required then
Right.
for the existing home. That's correct. Your grandfather, if you're not doing 75%, if you do less than that.
But if you get
I
past
think I
that
understand your
threshold.
question. The answer is, in building code, life safety code, we can make these effective immediately. We are not legally required to put a grandfather provision.
That's
So the
the
provision as drafted would apply immediately. 75% would apply immediately to all homes who pull a building permit. Now, where the grandfather could come into effect is if somebody had a completed application, a building permit application that was completed before the date, let's say before the date of the next meeting. We may say that building permit application, or if they're in the process of construction, we may say that those can continue to operate pursuant to their complete application. But if not a completed application, on or before the effective date, and we'll add a provision.
It's the second line here, for new building permits, apps only. So if we have a building permit application, that's under the old code.
We'll add a provision that expands on that makes clear if you've been talking midway through an application, that it's too bad. It is a completed application as of the date of adoption of the ordinance.
So that was the actual question. So thank you both, and thanks to all of the staff for this. This is, in my estimation, a really good beginning to the whole revision that we're looking at for our ordinances. So we got to get all of this stuff up to snuff too. So great
Yeah.
job.
Great, thank you. Andres?
Yeah, I have just some big picture questions, given that we're relying so much on these other codes by other organizations.
Yep.
So just a few questions here. How do you feel about the quality of the codes that come out of this very involved process? I mean, there's a lot of stakeholders, a lot of checks and balances and stuff, but obviously I can infer that you feel good about it because of the presentation. But given all the complexity and given that we're putting a lot of weight on receiving these codes and taking them on and studying them rather than having our own, just your level of confidence and your team's confidence.
Very high. I could say unequivocally. There is no way we could do this on our own. These code books are this big for each of those codes that I specified. Look at them all up there. There's no way that could be replicated with the capacity that we have at the local level, or pretty much any municipality, except perhaps for the largest cities in the United States, which do sometimes develop their own codes. Having said that, they also borrow from the ICC. The ICC, this is what they do. This is their
It's the
mission.
gold standard.
And it's what they've done for years and years and years. And so this is an iterative process that's well-developed, mature, and functions well.
Okay, great.
All 50 states.
And then-
State codes, not just local, but states model their code after this as well. As, you know, when you look at the state of Illinois and the stretch code and the state of Illinois energy conservation code, that's an ICC base that they're using.
All right. Okay, a couple other questions. Given some of the rollback, at least at the headline level, on, you know, net zero or, you know, reducing green, you know, gas emissions and things like that, given all this, there's a lot of green still in here.
Oh, yeah.
So what is your assessment about how well those regulations or the ability to keep green code embedded or added to here despite the assault on all things green?
Well, I will tell you that the grant that we received as a city with regard to the energy stretch code that we're analyzing and assessing, we're going to look at what the trajectory of the base model code is. The base model code has gotten more and more efficient over the years. Some code cycles less so than others, depending on how things go back and forth. These are hotly debated topics. There's certain nuanced things that are in or out because, oh, that was an overreach, then they take it out, they may put it back in. But general trajectory of the base model codes is more efficiency, more pollution prevention, okay? On top of that, we're looking at the Illinois stretch energy code. That's gonna get us another level. The ICC codes also have amendments that you could choose to adopt that would take you to a different level and require more things too. We're gonna analyze all those things, come back with like a policy package so that you can see those trajectories. Where are we going? What's that end point for each of these paths? Knowing that each code cycle is its own cycle. They shoot for more efficiency, but whether or not it gets there, what level, it's ultimately a vote, right? So, yeah.
Okay, last question. And you kind of inferred this, but, you know, there's these codes and these binders,
Mhm.
and then there's the supplements or the optionals. Within the package that you're saying, hey, we're gonna adopt this,
Yeah.
do we pick and choose also? We say, oh, we like all this, but not that one, that one, that one? Or if
Yeah.
you're gonna take the code, you take it all?
You adopt by reference and then amend locally. So our local amendments amend specific things in that code. We just talked about some of them that our local amendment does, yes.
And given that, a code is not the same as a regulation. So in other words, what happens if we don't abide by the, I mean, I know that we, the city, has to abide by it, right? But is there anybody enforcing it on top of us?
No, I mean, so the state promulgated codes, right? The state has the authority on the energy conservation, accessibility, and plumbing codes. Okay? Those are state codes. We adopt by reference, so we enforce them as well.
We enforce it.
Correct. So you can't, so you wouldn't adopt a code contrary to the state's plumbing code, for instance. So ICC has a plumbing code. We could adopt it. We choose not to because our state says this is the state plumbing code. So we get rid of that, delete that, and say the state code is it. So that we need to do. And we do adopt by reference the energy conservation code because the state said municipality shall do that when we update them. So we do that. And yes, the state can enforce its own codes. So yeah, if we adopted the ICC code, the state plumbing officials could say, hey, no. you
I'll
can't
just
do
add,
that.
the reason why we have the ability to ignore some of these codes is pursuant to our home rule authority. There are instances, though, where the state has said even home rule units are not exempt from our state code, and therefore even home rule units must follow it. The instances in which Joel has identified where we're deviating are instances where we're exercising our home rule authority to do it differently.
Right.
All right.
On the
And that's why
ICC
majority of the
codes.
plan reviews and then the inspections are done by our staff.
That's correct.
Okay.
And so we did get input from our third-party consultants as well that we worked with for years, who work with lots of communities. And we said, what do you think of this? And they participated, Archena coordinated and facilitated those conversations as well. So this is the benefit of years of experience from staff enforcing our code and just who have years of experience. As I mentioned, our electrical inspector has 50 years of experience as an electrician. He's worked here for years as well. We have our fire prevention unit who looked at the fire parts of things. We have a plumbing inspector who looked at the plumbing parts of things. So I think that it's a very strong recommendation, and I feel very strongly about the ICC codes as a national and best practice standard, as a model code. And like I said, all 50 states, this is not something peculiar or particular to us, and internationally have adopted these codes. Yeah, cool. Thank you for asking, though. It's an important question, it really is.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Incredibly thoughtful and detailed presentation, and for the entire staff's work. I think many of us saw the sprinkler demonstration by the fire department, and so it's clear how beneficial it is to have those in homes. We also heard how costly it is, right? $12,000 for a 3,000 square foot home to
And
do
that's just an
that.
estimate.
Sure.
Don't quote me.
And I assume sort of similar cost to put conduit for electrical, right, for homes that have knob and tube or existing electrical infrastructure. So my question is,
Flemington.
has the city ever thought about providing some type of incentive to those who want to voluntarily improve the safety of those type of things, electrical, to sprinkler their house, to reduce the risk of catastrophic fire and loss of
Not to
property?
my knowledge, no.
Like,
Can't we?
give money? And-
Some
and
type
so-
of, yeah, financial incentive, right? Like, I know, like, I can speak for myself, like, there'd be something that, as an owner of a very old home with enhanced risk, it'd be something that I'd be really interested in. And I'm sure, no, but like, and I'm sure others
So
would as well,
right,
given the
right.
cost of trying to open up walls and deal with some of this stuff.
Right, I think one would make the argument that that's your private asset, your private property, you stand to gain from upgrading it, your insurance costs presumably would go down. And this is as someone who bought a home and then paid the same amount to bring in safer electric and safer plumbing and all of that. So I understand what you're saying, but let's step back a second and say, if it's the city that's providing that funding, it's coming from the taxpayers. And so if you have people who live in old homes who are on fixed incomes and you're saying to them, you know, in my house, I want to do the work, but I need your money, I think people might have a problem with that. I understand what you're saying. And I understand, you know, we've been providing incentives for businesses, but presumably we're getting a return on investment on that.
Fair enough. You could argue that there's a benefit to the safety of the fire department and
Absolutely.
other public benefits from that, but I hear
But I
that.
think
It's a nuance.
I would start with educating people, and the chief has been doing that. I mean, we love pancakes at the firehouse, but the best part of that is seeing all the kids who are like, this is how I keep my house safe, and the parents going, oh, wait a second, I need to do this for my house.
Yep.
But I hear what you're saying. It would be great if we had unlimited funds, so we could start helping people upgrade their homes. I think there's gonna be an argument made in
Fair
terms of use of tax dollars for that, not to come in too much, but,
Makes sense.
anything else you wanna add?
No, I'm good.
Okay,
Thank you for that.
thanks.
Appreciate it.
Marissa?
Okay, so two quick questions. So I know did this whole review now, and thank you for this presentation. So how often do you do this? Every 3 years? Every 4 years?
No, so, very, very good question. So what
Our
we
child is
have-
like,
Yeah, well, yeah, that's not, let's do this over, right. So the code council,
Yeah.
the code council is on a 3-year cycle. So they're already developing the 2027 codes, all right? They're already mid-cycle, right? The last bullet here is what we recommend future, okay? And this is typically what we do. And so we're looking at 2 code cycles before upgrading again. So 2027, there'll be a new code cycle. We're saying skip that one, do the 2030. It is a lot of work. Our and the team have been working on this. It's a multi-year project, as you know. We're in 2026. We did a lion's share of the work at 25. It is not a light undertaking. And so we also think the following as well. So, you know, sometimes being cutting edge isn't always the best place to be, right? You don't want to get ahead of your own staff's capacity, right? They need time to train. This is why we're doing 2024, because it's the latest cycle. But we're doing it in 26, so we had some time to train. If you do it right away, it's like, what's going on? Everyone's like not really knowing what they're doing. And so we need to build capacity. You also want not just your own staff, right? You also want the design professional community to build capacity, because that's who we're reviewing the work. So if it's a mess, it's like, it just slows permitting down. It really becomes a real grind. And so That's why we do it when we believe is necessary. We do this to stay aligned with ISO and to make sure that we don't get penalized from ISO perspective. So this is important to adopt because we need to do this by March so that we don't have any ISO impact. And that's the standard. So that's why we do it on this type of a cycle as opposed to every 3 years. It's very, very arduous to do it every 3 years. Yeah.
Thank you. And then just one more quick question. So when we look at some of the local, like the changes that we've made in Highland Park, do you also consult with like neighboring suburbs? Like have you looked at like Deerfield or Glencoe or?
Yeah, they're on a varied.
Are they on different schedules?
We don't really rubberneck that much on this. I mean, basically all communities are in some phase of trying to keep their codes up to date.
Okay.
That 6-year window is basically what everyone's trying to keep within because ISO doesn't like it if you go out of that. So that's kind of the broad kind of container everyone's working in. Now some communities, they're back in 2012 codes still, you know?
I
Other
could be
communities
your-
are more current.
I could be your rubberneck, and we're right up with the municipalities that you're contiguous to.
Okay, great. Okay.
I mean, we have that information. So, having said that, just one thing to note, and I know this is something that Chief and I have talked about with Archana quite a bit, and our inspection unit. I would, once this is done by Highland Park and adopted, we'll be sending it to Highwood, and with the request that they update their code to this code for our fire and life
And it'd be
safety.
the one exception to my.
just say
luck.
that. I
That's
know.
correct.
Good luck.
Yeah.
So I spoke
That's
with
an
them
issue.
about that, I spoke with
Yeah.
the city
I don't know.
manager there and the deputy city manager.
Really?
Right, right. That's an
Okay.
expectation.
Yes.
So, okay.
But know this though,
Figures.
if they don't, it doesn't mean they don't have a fire code. We want them to do what we're doing, but they're on the 2012 code cycle, so.
Yeah.
that's
So
what
I'm going to encourage them to.
Yeah.
Yes.
upgrade it.
Encourage, that's a good verb.
It'll be a strong ask.
Yeah.
Let's
This
just
was
say that.
fantastic.
Chief and I will
Yeah.
be a strong ask.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay,
everybody.
thank you.
Really, truly
I really
appreciate it.
appreciate your
With that, I'm
consideration.
seeking a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thanks.